been telling anyone who'll listen for the last couple of weeks how excited I am about these guests in this panel and this discussion. We're going to be diving deep on CTV, and there's a lot to get into. So I'm going to kick us off by allowing the panel to introduce themselves, starting with you, Justin.
Hi, I'm Justin Taylor, and that sounded really loud. I am MD of Teads in the UK.
Hi, I'm Pippa Scaife. It is loud, isn't it? I'm the VP of Global Partnerships for NBCUniversal.
Hi, I'm Katy, Allison. I'm Head of Media and Campaigns at M&S Food.
Hi everyone, I'm Seun, Odeneye. I look after the media team at IPG Media Brands.
And I'm Rachel Hall, and I work at PMX in their advanced TV solution unit.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me. I'm going to go big with the first question. We're going to go general. How do you define TV in 2024, Seun?
It's quite interesting, actually, how everything's emptied out in here. I told people that my boss is talking upstairs, so I'm hoping that's why. So I'll kind of answer that question with an anecdote for which was then probably 4-year-old son. Every time he wanted to watch something, he'll go, I want to watch YouTube. I want to watch YouTube. And I just thought he had a speech impediment like me. But the reality is that while he couldn't pronounce it, there was something powerful in the fact that he said that, because he'll be watching Disney Plus and he'll go, I'm watching YouTube. He'll be watching YouTube, he'll go, I'm watching YouTube. And why that's powerful is when you think about YouTube, it's 19 years old now, which means you've got your first adult that has grown up in a world where they can only have demand first, i.e. they've got the choice of what they serve. So in answering the question, what does it look like? I'll probably answer for my 4-year-old son, YouTube, right? And when I think about it, and I think about the buckets, there's probably 2 buckets. There's the kind of school of thought, which TV is, anytime I'm consuming video content, whether that's online, live, that's TV. And I probably fall in that bucket, because actually a lot of my consumption is on my mobile, and when I get home, I cast it to the TV. But in kind of media world, we tend to do that kind of sample of one, and that's not the whole spectrum. So the other set of people are people that watch live TV or kind of streaming TV on a big screen, and that's what they perceive to be TV. So I think it kind of depends, but I'll leave you with this one thought. I was just thinking about it, which is I don't really subscribe to the idea that linear TV is dead. Subscribe to the idea, yeah, okay, tough crowd. But I don't really subscribe to the idea that linear is dead, and the reason why is because you think about, I fall in that bracket of 35 to 44-year-olds, right? I'm obviously at the younger part of that bracket. And that 75%, Barb's stats, I think 75% of them are still watching linear TV. Gen Zs are streaming more, but actually under 34s, I think it's 44 to 54% are watching linear TV. So people are still watching it. So the reality is that as marketers, we need to advertise where the eyeballs are and have that right balance in the plan based on our client's objective.
Excellent. Katy, how do you define TV?
I'd say for M&S specifically, we would define it as the home of premium advertising. It's still very much for us a platform where we want to serve beautiful, high-impact storytelling creative on the big screen. But I also think more generally, it's still very much that social medium. So people are still gathering around with their households, watching stuff together, rather than the sort of individual scrolling behavior that you might see through other platforms.
Excellent. Pippa, what's your definition of TV?
I mean, I know it's a real cop-out, and I think Sean's kind of alluded to this, but I just don't think there is a definition for TV anymore. I think that the media industry, as it is right now, is essentially a Venn diagram, and there's an awful lot of overlap, and all the borders are really blurry, and we kind of don't know what's what anymore. And I sit in an interesting position because I work for a broadcaster. Like, we are historically a TV company. We sell ourselves as a TV company. But actually, in the international markets that I work in, we don't have any linear channels. And we also don't have an owned and operated streaming service. What we do have is a lot of fast channels. We've got a massive social presence. We have aggregation coming from other areas. And we have an awful lot of YouTube content. So that is all the premium content that you're talking about, it's all made by a broadcaster, but none of it is living on what I think anyone would define as a TV channel in those markets. And when we aggregate all of that stuff from ourselves and from our partners, I can guarantee that if I put the same plan targeted to the same KPIs in front of two different clients, one of them will come back and say, that's great, but we don't want YouTube. We don't define that as TV. And someone else will come back and say, can we double down on YouTube, but actually we don't want any fast channels. So there's no definition anymore. I think everyone is just trying to figure out how to hit the KPIs, and sometimes that falls under what we'd maybe term as TV.
Excellent. Justin, how would you define it?
I think we can sort of see the problem here is everyone has these sort of wildly different definitions, but in my view, I think if we look at it, we've got TV being that big screen in the house. You know, whether it's a big screen in the bedroom, but big screen in the lounge, it's a sociable type of medium. It's one that can be lean forward if we're engaging with it, or lean back if we just want to sort of watch something, like chewing gum for the mind. But the difference between TV and digital video or video is that we're consuming it on this big screen. So that, for me, is the big definition, this premium nature of it, because it's a beautiful screen to look at.
And Rachel, your definition?
Yeah, I mean, not to be an echo chamber and the fifth person answering, but coming from a product side where we are dealing with demand from a lot of advertisers who recognise, and agencies and AV teams who recognise that premium quality content, broadcaster like, you know, very much long form, I'd echo what Pippa says, which is, I think instead of trying to define it, we should just celebrate how much it can do now for agencies and brands alike, how we can, as we head towards, you know, more IPTV served, a marketplace, that actually the data-driven nature and how we can use TV is something to behold, because it's still as effective as driving long and short-term sales for advertisers. But the definition evolves daily, and frankly it keeps us all in an interesting job and an interesting marketplace, because every day your product roadmap's changing.
I just think this notion of premium TV is slightly flawed, because what's premium TV? I think the content could be premium, but what makes a premium TV? I've got Samsung in my house, but you might go to another house and they've got like, someone's got a big back, and is that a premium TV? So, because you're saying because it's a big screen, but someone might use a projector. So it's just because it's big. Some people have got big phones.
Yeah, I don't think it's the screens. I think we're probably agreeing it's not necessarily the screens. It can be screen agnostic. It's about the content, the long form nature of it will drive different engagement and different attention metrics. Whereas, you know, as you enter into different types of screens, you know that's going to do different jobs for clients and brands and their KPIs.
Excellent. Good. Well, I'm glad that we do not have a strict definition, else we would have not had very much to discuss for the next half an hour. What we do seem to agree on is that CTV is a very fragmented marketplace at the moment. There's a lot of definitions. There is a lot going on. Rachel, how is this fragmentation impacting the industry, and how are you seeing it?
Yeah, so I would, obviously, with all fragmentation in a marketplace comes a ton of opportunity and a ton of challenge. And certainly my role in my last two jobs has been to try and simplify that approach for clients and agencies alike, because it's not straightforward. I think if you break it down from a consumer point of view, you've got a lot of upside. You're enjoying amazing content on different screens when you want to watch it, and you can choose to have ads or you can choose not to have ads. The biggest challenge for me is trying to decide what to watch, which subscriptions to keep paying, and you know, that's the challenge every night when I sit down for my 1 hour to watch some telly. It's like, shit, what am I going to watch? However, I think when you get into the advertiser point of view, I think it's exciting. I think whilst it's harder to plan, activate and measure across some walled gardens, some not walled gardens, it's still exciting to be able to find incrementality and new eyeballs in new environments, because that is ultimately what a lot of our clients are asking us to do, is help them allocate spend according to their audience and their KPIs. So they've got some upside. As agencies, I think we've got complexity around the tools, systems, measurements, advanced TV specialists, data, partnerships to handle, and that's a challenge, but that's why, you know, working in a fragmented marketplace is a good place to be at the moment. I think we're enjoying trying to figure out what's next. And then the last thing I'd say is certainly it's something about consistency, particularly when it comes to audience. So when we launched Lift in the UK for publicists, on the back of the increase in video penetration, it very much came about a single approach, not just a buying route, but a single approach to audience. So all our products are powered by Epsilon's ID, a core ID solution, and that what we're trying to do there is make sure that right at the beginning when a client briefs us, we are building them one approach to audience, whereas if they're obviously briefing 5 or 6 different platforms or vendors, they're going to have a ton of different third-party, first-party data sets building that audience. So I think trying to maintain some consistency from an audience and a measurement point of view is one of the bigger challenges from the fragmentation.
Yeah, it's a lot of complexity there across the board. Justin, what do you think about the fragmentation of the industry?
I think it's natural. We're at the very start of the sort of the CTV journey, especially in the UK. There's multiple players entering the market at the moment. There's multiple platforms, there's multiple fast apps, there's multiple content providers. It's going to be complicated. We have to look back, 20 years and look at when the internet was just burgeoning out. There are many different, many different players in the market then, and it was fragmented. It's the same now. Difference being is we've got different technologies, different OEMs, different operating systems, all trying to vie for that sort of first or second position. So until we get to a more level playing field, then we're not going to see that sort of fragmentation change. But also, everyone around on here, but in agencies and in tech companies, they're driving fragmentation as well because they're looking out for themselves in this growth period. So it's unsurprising when you think about it, when we think that marketers are confused because they had this wonderful screen, whether it's premium or not, that they loved. They called it TV. They bought into it. Now they have this thing called CTV. They don't quite understand what it is, why it's different, because it's just that big screen in their living room or in the bedroom or the kitchen, wherever it might be, that you used to be able to serve ads on. So we have to make it simple for our clients. We have to make it simple for anyone that's watching it as well, and that's up to us. But fragmentation is not going to change for a little while.
Yeah, Pippa, as a representative of one of the fragments of the fragmentation, how do you see the market?
Yeah, it's really interesting listening to everyone talk about fragmentation, and it is super fragmented. I read a statistic the other day that said there are now 1,200 unique FAST channels in the big 5 in Europe alone, which is, mad. That's before you've even thrown in VOD, before you've thought about all the different channel owners in YouTube. I think about your job all the time and think, oh my God, how do you navigate that? Like, where do you even start? It's bananas. But it's fascinating hearing 2 people talk about fragmentation and what it means, and you hear fragmentation, you think scale, and therefore you think data, and you think incrementality. Like, I hear the word incrementality all the time. Can you help us find incrementality? What I hear a lot less of at the moment is the word content. Can you help me find the right content? And I sometimes think that because of this fragmentation, everyone's trying to do everything. We're all trying to deliver with the same scale and impact as traditional TV. We want the same CPMs as online video. We want the same performance metrics as display. And we're kind of losing sight of what made TV great. And what made TV great from both a consumer and a buyer's perspective is that it was a really engaging, really premium, really brand-safe environment. And I think as we look at all of that fragmentation, what we've got to figure out, and what we are trying to figure out, working with Freewheel, who are also part of Comcast, is how do we dive into all of those different fragmented players? How do we bring together a broadcaster like Sky with a CTV platform like Tubi, with a aggregator like Zumo, and ensure that across that whole journey we're finding the premium content that is going to deliver that brand safe quality environment and ultimately drive the emotional connection that delivers the KPIs that our partners are looking for. So we are trying to simplify that process. I think the challenge we've got is that, to Katy's point, we're not quite there as an industry with measurement, with optimization, with the tools that allow us to, once we found that, make sure that it's all kind of working in synergy and giving us consistent results. But I really think it's important that we keep that kind of content piece in mind because it does often drop off.
Yeah, definitely. Katy, from the brand side, how do you
Yeah.
choose?
I totally agree on the content point. But actually, I was going to sort of go back to fragmentation is a client's sort of nightmare. We don't have time to be sitting down with every single platform and streaming partner out there. But I think scale is also really important. I think the likes of like the Netflixes and the Amazons who are releasing these ad-supported models. If the inventory is not there for us, it's really hard for us to sort of move away from ITV and Channel 4 and put budget into something which we can't actually prove incrementality because we can't pull it out in econometrics, or it's just, we don't want to be, using small budgets to not really be able to prove what it drives. So I think that's the biggest challenge for us. The more fragmentation you get, the sort of more places you have to put your budget, but then how do you prove what it's returning? So it's there, but it's not easy for a client.
Yeah, and Sean, what do you think?
Firstly, that's our job to help you navigate that fragmentation, Katy. So when you're up for a review, come speak to us, yeah? I guess when you look at fragmentation in two ways, right? I actually think consumers are, I kind of want to dovetail what you were saying from a consumer point of view. Consumers are seeing that fragmentation. I don't actually know if it's a good thing. You position it like choice. I think to myself about 7-8 years ago, I would have one subscription of Sky. That's my one-stop shop for linear, on-demand, anything I wanted to watch, right? And once a year, I call up Sky, negotiate my 50% discount, and then go again for another 12 months. And now, fast forward 2024, I've got, Netflix for Top Boy and Love is Blind. Shout out if you watch Top Boy, Blap Blap. Disney for the kids.
It's not none of it's cheap, is it?
Yeah, and it's really expensive. And I can't call them up for 50% discount, right? So that's an issue for me, right? But I think when you think about it on the kind of client side, to your point around content and fragmentation, when we're buy side, we're looking at it holistically. And we need to, yes, I appreciate there's different media and everyone adds their different unique element, but we want to be able to scale, and we want to be able to scale in a targeted way, so we put the right content in front of our clients, and we want to scale in a way where we can measure. So this goes above and beyond just CTV, that we need kind of targeting solutions and measurement solutions that can go across the breadth of it all, right? So we can have kind of that one-stop place. And I know there's companies like Audience Project there that do good stuff, but we want to be able to look at everything holistically, including the big G that I don't know if we're allowed to say here, but YouTube, etc. But we want to be able to look at everything.
Yeah, and with that fragmentation and the different models we're seeing, one of them that's really come to the fore has been the ad-supported model recently. We've seen Netflix move into ads, Prime move into ads in different ways. Pippa, how is the ad-supported model really moving the needle for the users and for buyers as well?
Yeah, well, I have got good news for you, Sean, because you don't need to be paying all the subscriptions. There actually are a lot of ad-supported services out there. Save yourself some cash.
At the bottom of your telly, the little ads.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Netflix, Disney Prime, they've all started to introduce these ad-supported tiers recently. It isn't totally new. Peacock, the service that we have in the US, actually launched as an ad-supported service coming up to 5 years ago now. So from day one, we made the decision very consciously that we wanted to create a platform that was going to enable all of our consumers to come and consume our services off linear and have that ad-supported experience. So we've got a lot of learnings, I think, as we've gone through that journey, that we're seeing other parts of the market pick up. And now we have this very rapid proliferation of ad-supported services as other businesses are introducing their tiers, and as newer ad-supported streamers are launching, with that model from day one. I think my two big takeaways as we do look at that expansion of the ad-supported model is that, one, everyone's got to up their game. Like, you can't launch an ad-supported service and assume that you can kind of transport the learnings from a linear ad-supported business into that environment and it's going to work. The expectation is much, much higher. I think we are servicing now consumers who have been used to subscribing to Netflix and Disney, have been used to that ad-free experience, and therefore are much more sensitive, actually, to how ads interrupt their viewing habits. So innovation has to go up. You know, we're not talking about pre-rolls and mid-rolls anymore. We're talking about ads that are responsive to a consumer's behavior. And that's, you know, your basic things like pause ads or prime pods, or things like binge ads that actually reward a consumer's behavior, you know, reduce your ad load as a result of you watching more of that content. We're also talking about the ad load itself. You know, no one is sitting through the volume of ads that we used to sit through on TV anymore. We've got maximum of 5 minutes of ads per hour, but within that, we're thinking about how many you can watch in one go. You know, we're never serving 3 ads in a single pod. We're never serving more than 60 seconds worth of ads in a single pod. That experience is radically different. And we're also starting to think about how you integrate innovation into the programming itself, how you make it dynamic, how you make it shoppable, how you introduce AI so that you actually understand what you're looking at and how you can buy from that program. And then the second thing I would say is that as this proliferation is happening, we need to think about the buying experience. And I don't necessarily mean how the big agencies are coming in and buying. You know, we have, to the fragmentation point, a lot of businesses going after the TV budgets now. You know, if you've got a TV budget, it's not a case of you've got 10 people to call up and decide where to put it. You've got hundreds of businesses that you can call up and decide where to put it. And as that fragmentation happens, ultimately the pot of money is getting spread a lot thinner. So we've got to think about how we grow the size of the prize. And that's things like bringing in programmatic for experiences where you would never have had that before. So live sports, for example, we introduced live sport programmatic buying last year. We have now seen an 87% increase in the volume of businesses buying into live sports. We've also started to introduce self-serve mechanisms, so allowing businesses who maybe have been buying from TikTok or Meta through self-service tools, who would never have thought that they could afford to enter the TV market, are now buying into that space. So it's changing the experience of the consumer, but also thinking about how you change the experience of the buyer and ultimately change the type of buyer who's entering that market.
Yeah, Justin, with the ad-supported models, Pippa just touched there on, you know, the potential innovations and how we can get messages out through CTV. How do you feel about the growth of those opportunities?
I think we're seeing that growth of the opportunities, not just within the sort of linear space, the ad pod space, but sort of across how we're engaging with our TVs. So most of the sort of OEMs have their own operating systems now, and those operating systems offer new ad opportunities. So, for example, yeah, when I'm going on to watch the Olympics on the BBC, I won't get served an ad. However, if I'm accessing it through, you know, my home screen on my TV, we can serve an ad onto that home screen of TV. So we're trying to bring new uninterrupted models of advertising onto the screen where places they weren't before. And that's going beyond just sort of video and display style ads. It's going into more engaging ads as well. So you can start looking at sort of internet-like experiences on your sort of TV.
Yeah, Sean, how do you feel about the ad-supported model?
I think it depends on the platform. Pippa mentioned earlier that obviously I don't need to pay for all these services, but when I think about Netflix, for example, I'm a cheapskate, but I don't think you could pay me to downgrade from my ad-free model, right? Knowing I was coming on this panel, I asked one of my team that I know had the ad-free model, and they said that one of the things they can't do on Netflix, and if you work at Netflix, I mean, I'm wrong here, is that when she gets home, she can't cast it to the TV. For me, that's a bit of a game, that's a bit of a deal breaker for me, because I watch on my phone, but when I get home, I want it on the premium TV. So I want it on the TV, right? But I quite like, again, the G word, with my marketing hat on, I kind of like what YouTube done, actually. Because I watch YouTube a lot on my phone, right? And I probably get one ad every 15 minutes. When I get home, I cast it on the TV. Two of the things I realize is that firstly, it's got that big TV feel ad experience first. It's not the same kind of ad. But they changed the cadence of the ad for me. I'm getting a lot more ads on the. So it's like people are targeting that connected TV. So, but I think the people that really, you know, done well with is Amazon, because they just said, you know, what you're paying now, everybody's getting ads. Not you pay less, everybody's getting ads. And obviously, I'm never going to pay more not to get ads. because obviously I'm a cheapskate. So I stay in my lane and I watch the ads and enjoy it, right? So it's just different. It's different flavors for different platforms.
Yeah, I think
And
that's
if
fair.
can I just jump in that
Yeah.
if these streaming giants are going to offer ad-supported models, we really should be putting pressure on them to release the numbers on the type of audiences that are and aren't opting in. Really important for a brand like M&S and the likes of Spotify, Netflixes. They haven't yet told us what the audience is that are there versus keeping their sort of premium memberships, and we really need to know that as clients.
And then I think you could probably add to that as well. A lot of our clients will say, you know, what you logged in at, who's subscribing. If you're matching to that subscriber data, obviously we're trying to apply one-to-one techniques to a big screen experience where 9 times out of 10 there's 2 or 3 people watching it, or there's 4 people in the house who are not the main subscriber. So it's coming to terms with how you're matching all of those things as well. But I think, you know, certainly as we're trying to integrate with the SVOD providers at the moment. I think everybody's probably done a lot of good work talking about the positive incrementality that AVOD would offer, and I'm sure SVOD offers. But as you say, the opportunities to apply better data need to be considered when you're talking about the big screen. And it's going back to your point, which is you've got a big screen, you're asking it to do a lot. And I think, you know, that one-to-one approach, at some point we're going to have to say, well, it's not supposed to be doing that. We can't tell who's watching it unless we have some sort of camera in people's tellies proving who's sat there watching it, and facial recognitions or child recognition. You don't necessarily know who that ad is serving to, even with the best targeting and ID solutions in market.
Just slightly different track. One of the things I think we have to remember is we are going through a cost of living crisis at the moment, and there's more content available, more audio-visual content, more other content available on TVs than there ever has been before. So we're giving access to people who can't afford to have subscription services, are having to sort of cut back. You mentioned sort of 1,000 plus sort of fast channels across the sort of the big 5. There's tens of thousands of TV channels now. There's millions of hours of content we can all watch in a day, and that's because there is advertising, the same as we have on the internet, available, and it's a really powerful thing. So I think for us, we have to know how to harness that to give as much of that content back to the consumer, so they don't have to pay for it. So they can only pay for the services they want to, but still get access to as much content as needed.
Yeah, I'll move along to our next one. Sean, you mentioned the generational shift. You mentioned your kid in YouTube earlier. My daughter knows which episodes of Paw Patrol are on which streaming service, which terrifies me, frankly. But I want to talk about the generational shift and whether that shift in consumption away from traditional or linear TV is affecting how budgets are allocated. Justin, I'll come to you first on that one.
I think Sean kicking off with the YouTube piece, I think it is absolutely ubiquitous with sort of audio visual, and I don't know the stats, someone here can probably tell me, but I'd say on most TVs that YouTube is probably the biggest, or at least the second biggest fast app that's being utilized. I know my kids will watch YouTube on the big screen if they can do. But I think we're seeing TV changing as well. So we've got a generation of kids who've grown up with their PlayStations or their Xboxes, playing games on their bigger screen and accessing TV through that. We've now got a new generation that are accessing games via the TV when they've been watching TV on it. If we think back, Facebook used to be the biggest place for casual games. Then the mobile phone took that over. Are we moving into the older generations now where the TV is going to become that casual gaming space? We've seen the growth of podcasts and video podcasts, again, driven by YouTube and others. I think Samsung have done some really fantastic work bringing on the Diary of a CEO, so testing out that sort of podcast format within that TV environment. And then the second place, sort of coming back, is most of us will know people that use TikTok and Reels and YouTube Shorts obsessively. That's coming to the big screen, and it's on the big screen at the moment. And we'll find new ways of scrolling through that as well. So generationally, we're seeing the changes as we've seen throughout sort of history, that we're trying to use the screen in ways that we want to engage, we want to snack and get as much content back as possible. it could be terrifying if we've got sort of, the TikTok and, Reels type of epidemic on the big screen. We'd never get access to watch actually good programs, but, we can see it happening, and I can see gaming happening a lot more as well.
Yeah, Pippa, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think we can definitely see that generational shift potentially moving back to the big screen. I think there was definitely a moment at conferences like this a few years ago where there were a lot of people sitting on stage saying Gen Z will never watch TV again. They're only ever going to watch things on their phone, and we're never going to be able to serve ads to them on a big TV. I think for all the reasons that Justin mentioned, we can assume that's not happening. And it's interesting as they do, as we do see that generation really embrace a big screen, they're coming at it from a very different place from us. You talk about your Netflix subscriptions, and, we've all got our subscriptions that we'd rather not have ads served against, because we all come from a place where we had to phone up and negotiate our Sky subscription, and that's kind of the price bar that we've lived with for a long time. So suddenly, $8.99 or whatever it is doesn't seem like that an expensive a cost. But this is a generation who actually are very happy to have ads served to them. This is exactly as you say, the point of your 4-year-old. This is the YouTube generation. This is the TikTok generation. This is a generation who are used to having free ad-supported content served to them and chosen for them. By virtue of the usage of those services, this is the algorithm generation. And we're all assuming that, I think there has been a lot of assumption that with all this fragmentation, everybody wants to have choice all the time. Everybody wants to be able to sit down and choose exactly the program they're going to watch. And increasingly, we're seeing that that is not true. And, my own anecdote, I've got a 3-year-old, and I've always put VOD on for her. We'll watch Bluey on Disney Plus or Hey Dougie on iPlayer or whatever it is. And recently we were at my parents' and they've got terrible Wi-Fi, so I just put on CBeebies, and she said after a few minutes, "Mummy, Grandma's TV is amazing. It chooses the programs for you." She just couldn't believe it. It was Christmas for her. And I thought, it was really eye-opening. I thought, yeah, there is a moment for fast, actually. There's a moment for fast, there's a moment for VOD, there's a moment for long form, there's a moment for short form. We've got to figure out, as we've been saying, how all of these things come together, and as an ad community, how we ensure that we are planning them in a way that makes sense for the KPIs for our clients, using them in the right moments, driving the right emotional connections. But I don't think that we have to assume that because this generation has had a different experience, we necessarily need to reinvent the wheel every step of the way. We just need to recognize what's not broken and where we can continue to improve.
Yeah, Katy, anything to add on that one?
I just think it's really important for us to remember, like you say, that the generations are happy to see ads on TV now. So as an advertiser, we can't or shouldn't be just serving our sort of long-form TV content across YouTube just because they're viewing it on a TV screen. They're sort of still expecting snackable, social-first content that they're watching on a big screen. So it's really important for us to be really thinking about the platforms specifically in silos sometimes, particularly creatively. And it's not just a one-size-fits-all approach because, as you say, the younger generation might not be happy to sit through a 60-second beautiful TV ad within their Netflix shows.
Sean?
Just to build on what you said, it's such a good point because it's not just the platforms, it's the channels, right? So you said stuff's going to go on a big screen, that's brilliant. But if in the world of usage, JT, you've got TikTok on it, you can't have a long format, right? And so it's about understanding the content and embracing that. Channel 4, I'm not a Channel 4 rep, but it's just so interesting is that across, they're seeing so much growth on social channels. They've seen, I think, 1.6 billion views across all social platforms, and TikTok being the fastest growing. On TikTok, they're seeing half a billion views, right? And it's mental when you think about it, because that's the new, that's what people are consuming. And I was even thinking about me. I got advertised I don't know if you've seen it, like a short kind of movie, like a 10-second movie, and it was like really poor acting, but I kind of got brought into it. And I was like, oh, what's this? And I had to watch the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And I had to download the app to watch the rest of it. And it's like, and I've done all of that because I just wanted to see the end of the movie. And That's how people are consuming content right now. And it's those new platforms that are coming out that people are going on and consuming. And so really, it keeps on coming back to my 4-year-old son, YouTube.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to take one more question. We've got a few minutes I'll take a few minutes remaining. I want to just finish off talking about YouTube and TikTok and their prominence in TV. I think it was announced this morning that YouTube has seen a growth from 7% to 19% of the TV audience over the past 12 months. So, rapid fire, I suppose. Do you class YouTube and TikTok as TV, Justin?
I'm going to say yes, just because you're consuming it on the big screen now, and people are leaning into it. They want to consume it there. TikTok, I'm not so sure of at the moment, but I do think the rise of short form on the TV is going to be the big battleground in 25.
Pippa, what do you reckon? YouTube, TikTok, TV?
I mean, it's not up to us. The consumers have spoken, haven't they? And it is TV. I think what we have to recognise is that there is a spectrum of content on YouTube. Some of it is user-generated, not what I would define as premium, and some of it is very premium broadcaster-generated content, and we need to figure out how to kind of isolate that and recognise it in the same breath as we would recognise broadcaster content on any other platform.
Yeah, Katy, how do you feel?
I think it doesn't really matter to a brand. But yes, I think some of our campaigns, we see over 70% of our impressions on YouTube served on a connected TV device. It's really significant for us. But whatever drives the returns is where we will be. So it doesn't really matter either way.
Excellent. Sean, YouTube?
YouTube. It's interesting what Katy said, because that's how we actually look at life at buy side. We look at holistically. Clients don't dictate and say, put 70% on spending YouTube, but you end up putting 70% in spending YouTube. To your point around the volume and the just stronghold that we've got on audiences, we go where the eyeballs are. Our job as marketers, I said it before, I said it again, creating meaningful moments for our brands. It's that right user, right place, right time, and that's what we've got to do.
Rachel, what do you reckon?
Yep, in agreement on that, specifically on YouTube. Again, it's about KPIs that are needing to be hit and what media you choose to use to deliver that based on your audience and what else you're doing on the marketing plan. So definitely a place for it, but I would agree with Pippa. There's a vast array of different content on there, and so we just need to not lump it all into one and make sure we deal with them separately to some extent, and they do different jobs.
Excellent. Well, we started with no clear definition of what TV was, and we're finishing with a solid definition that YouTube certainly is it. That was wonderful. Thank you very much, guys. Really appreciate it, and thank you all for listening.